Great weekend. Deadline White House with Nicolle Wallace starts right now. Hey, Nicolle.
Hi, everyone. It's 4 o'clock in New York. Donald Trump entered a new phase of his presidency today as he emerged on the world stage at the G20 summit in Buenos Aires, Argentina, for the first time with a new title added to his name, Individual One, a legal code name applied to him in a court filing from special counsel Robert Mueller. While Trump's turns on the world stage have included notable low points, like siding with Vladimir Putin over his own intel community, shoving aside the leader of Montenegro, a NATO ally, and blowing off a World War I tribute during a trip to France, his appearance today marks the first of his presidency, where he steps on stage as the central subject in an investigation into possible collusion between Russia and his own presidential campaign. The Washington Post reporting, quote, in two major developments this week, President Trump has been labeled in the parlance of criminal investigations as a major subject of interest, complete with an opaque legal code name, Individual One. One day after the surprise guilty plea from the president's former fixer and lawyer, Michael Cohen, the picture of just how much trouble the president may be in is becoming clearer. Our friend Emily Jane Fox reports in Vanity Fair, quote, Cohen's guilty plea also came together only in the last 2 weeks, according to people familiar with the matter. It was during that time frame that Trump submitted his written answers to questions from Mueller's team, including, according to a previous New York Times report, an explicit question about the president's communication with Cohen about the Russian real estate deal. The president woke up in Argentina today clearly aware of this new reality, one in which Robert Mueller made clear through his filing yesterday that he knows Donald Trump was at least trying to do business with Russia, even after clinching the nomination of his party. With that in mind, perhaps Donald Trump sought to move the goalpost from his oft-repeated, I have no business with Russia, to something more along the lines of, well, of course I was doing business with Russia. I'm a multitasker, and you're lucky to have me. Tweeting this, quote, oh, I get it. I'm a very good developer, happily living my life when I see our country going in the wrong direction, to put it mildly. Against all odds, I decide to run for president and continue to run my business. Here's my favorite part. Very legal and very cool. Here to take us through the day's developments and tell us what very legal means, some of our favorite reporters and friends. Joining us from Buenos Aires, where the president is attending that summit, LA Times White House correspondent Eli Stokols, Frank Figliuzzi, former FBI Assistant Director for Counterintelligence, is back. And here at the table, Heilemann's here, co-host and executive producer of Showtime's The Circus.
Oh, I'm here.
Barely here. Jason Johnson, politics editor for The Root, and Karine Jean Pierre, senior advisor to MoveOn.org. Eli, take us through this sort of collision of the president's now very public. There's been a lot of speculation up until today, up until this point, of just how interested Robert Mueller was specifically in the president's conduct around questions of Russia, questions of the Trump Tower meeting, of his business interests. Now we know, and now we know that, as the Post reported today, he is the central subject in that investigation.
Yeah, that's correct, Nicolle. And it's hard to really get a sense of how much that is weighing on the president as we watch him go from meeting to meeting down here at the G20. But he doesn't seem to be, all that motivated, all that excited to be here, tweeting early this morning about the Mueller probe, calling it a witch hunt, defending himself. And as you said, moving the goalpost, saying once again that thing he denied for a long time, that now he's been proven to have been doing. Now he's basically saying, oh, yeah, what's wrong with doing that anyway? So it's a total, 180 on that. Not the first time we've seen that from the president. He also, he was planning to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin, canceled that meeting earlier in the week, and continues to insist that is all about the Ukraine, Russia's naval aggressions in the Sea of Azov, that it has nothing to do with the Russia probe. But he's volunteered that information enough times via Twitter and in person, in terms of talking to the reporters who are in the room ahead of some of these one-on-one meetings with other leaders, that you really get the sense that he's trying a little too hard to convince people that that's the case.
It would also be the first time that any of Vladimir Putin's conduct, brutal conduct, interfered with any of Donald Trump's plans to rub shoulders with him. It would be an interesting departure. I think he had poisoned dissidents in Russia, and Theresa May was speaking out against him on a daily basis. And we didn't change anything about our conduct there. I want to ask you, Eli, though, about this colonel and some of the stories today. We learned from the Washington Post that Trump's legal team did not learn until Thursday that Cohen had sat for dozens of hours of interviews with Mueller's office, according to a senior administration official. I know that you often see staff on these trips more than you see the president himself. Is there anything you're picking up from the staff, any sort of fatigue or concern or alarm about the Cohen developments?
Not directly, but, you know, talking to people, it does seem like you can tell this is weighing on the president quite a bit. And once again, throughout this entire investigation, we've seen the White House, the legal team, the president himself caught off guard by developments, learning of things when they break in the news media, not getting a whole lot of advance notice. Has to be frustrating for him, continue to have frustrations with the Justice Department and just feeling a lack of control generally with this probe. I think talking to people around the president, there is a sense that he has that this is maybe nearing a different stage, a more dangerous stage for him, where there could be more indictments, people very close to him. And so I think that's weighing on him pretty heavily as we see him really giving cursory comments during the interactions with reporters at the beginning of a lot of these meetings. Unlike other summits where I've seen him at, he does not seem to be here in Buenos Aires with a goal of, you know, turning all the tables over and making the summit all about him. He seems distracted, Nicolle, to put it frankly.
Frank, let me put up the two references that I alluded to at the top of the show. These are two references to the president in court filings from the Mueller probe this week. One is about Roger Stone. I believe this was in the charging document for Mr. Corsi, and it said Stone was understood to be in regular contact with then-candidate Donald J. Trump. We know from reporting in multiple news organizations that reference to the president, that reference to Stone being in contact with the president, I'm told by a close ally of the president's, that seemed to the president's legal team to be implicating Donald Trump in the central question of collusion, that bothered him very much. They took those complaints to the Justice Department where they were heard, but the president's name not removed from that filing. The other one was in the Cohen document yesterday, where Cohen said, I made these misstatements to be consistent with Trump's political messaging and out of loyalty to Trump. What is the president's legal predicament at this hour, Frank?
Well, let's add a third example there, and let's talk about Manafort and the revelation that he was not only lying to Mueller during his so-called cooperation, but was funneling information back to the White House and Trump. Those three together, Corsi, Stone, Cohen, Manafort, we've got four, indicate to me that there's a reason why we're seeing the president referred to as individual number one. It's because he's soon to become defendant number one. I've learned over the course of my FBI career, Nicolle, that multiple people cannot lie easily, simultaneously about the same thing without central coordination. It's actually very hard to coordinate lies and have them happen randomly. So my working theory is that there is a ringmaster here. There is alignment, coordination of statements to Congress, to Mueller, to the public, and that this is not happening haphazardly, but rather with coordination. If that's true, and I'm accurate, then individual number one is poised to become defendant number one.
Let me just follow up. We giggled because the notion that there was a coordinated effort, I mean, even things that they try to do in full view, coordination isn't something you'd ever accuse the Trump team of, the campaign, the White House, or any facet of his identity and brand. They are not coordinated. So if they actually coordinated lies, is that a separate crime? And what are those crimes? Is that witness tampering, conspiracy? What is that?
So obviously we have lying to Congress, lying to federal agents, all violations of federal laws. But on an even larger scale, you certainly could argue that this is an attempt at obstruction, at witness tampering or intimidation. And, you know, back to your coordination effort. So the one thing that people seem to do around President Trump is try to not invoke his wrath and to ingratiate themselves. And when you talk about people like Cohen and you talk about people like Stone and Manafort, these are giant wannabes. They want to tell him, I'm about to testify, boss. What do you think? I'm going into Mueller's office, boss. What should I say? And so it's an opportunity for him to be that ringmaster And someone had to do it. And I think it is individual number one who's calling the shots.
Heilemann, you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, look, it's a complicated question for a variety of reasons. I think one of the things that we have all lapsed into, because if you covered the presidential campaign in any close way, the notion that this campaign was a Keystone Cops operation, that they were didn't know what they were doing, that they were comically disorganized, et cetera, was a commonplace, right? It's fought by the outcome of the election. Really, we have had other presidents, including the guy you worked for, who won the Electoral College without winning the popular vote. It's not the first time that's ever happened. To lose the popular vote by 3.5 million votes and win an Electoral College majority is really tough needle. It's tough needle to thread.
Yeah.
You don't thread that, and that doesn't happen by accident. The Keystone Cops don't pull that off as they bumble and fumble their way around.
Right.
You know, you go talk to
They knew where to land the plane.
They knew how to land the plane, and you go and talk to a guy like Brad Parscale, and you talk about the way he was working with Facebook and targeting ads to particular places down the home stretch.
Yeah.
That the digital operations were actually pretty sophisticated. How are they sophisticated? They were sophisticated in coordination, to use your word, with where the Russian fake news was happening, and in particular congressional districts, in particular precincts, particular states. They were not stupid. And I think that whether Donald Trump himself was down at the detailed level of running the campaign, that's certainly not true. But when it comes to this level of coordinating things at the highest level, and on this question, which I think is the key one here, right? Donald Trump is promiscuous in his lies. He's promiscuous in a lot of things, right? But many of the promiscuities that he has had in his life have been trivial things. He doesn't recall various things he said in the past. He doesn't care about these things. He didn't care about that woman or that person he screwed over. He cares a lot about money. And what we're getting to right now is that the lies and questions have been lies about protecting a career built on fraud and potentially on financial crime and potentially on money laundering. And those lies, because they are all about the one thing he cares about, himself and his money, those are the things that he has a lot of focus on. And the things he has focus on are things he's capable of coordinating.
Let me just say on this, because I think this is right, and this is sort of the ultimate contradiction of the Trump era, right? He also, there's one thing that everyone's lied about. It's not like one person lied about contacts with Russia, and then one person forgot about meeting with the Brits, and another person forgot about a chit-chat they had with Spain. They all lied about the same thing, to Frank's point. And
and again, you know, the famous Bill Clinton thing of how when you see a turtle on a fence post, you know it didn't get there by accident. It's the same thing. You don't you don't lose by 3.5 million votes and eke out a narrow electoral college victory without some kind of intelligence, and you don't have a whole bunch of people all telling lies that snap together like a jigsaw puzzle without some coordinated intelligence behind it. And whether it's Donald Trump alone or the rest of the Trump family or the Kushners, but collectively this low-level, low-rent, cheesy crime family that I think they are at heart, there's coordination there, and there's an effort there that has, up until now, worked pretty well to get Donald Trump to a lot of places nobody thought he could get.
It might also include an indictment at some point as president or afterward. Let me ask you, Frank, I want to get to the questions that we know Trump has answered that's in the news, but I just want you to button this part of this up for us. If you take the list of people, and we're talking about Manafort this week because the week started, it feels like 11 weeks ago, but it was Monday that we learned that Mueller ripped up his cooperation agreement because he was lying to him. On Thursday, Cohen pleaded guilty to lying, but way before that, months and months before that, Michael Flynn pleaded guilty to lying. Some people have observed it may have been to protect his son from some legal jeopardy. Michael Flynn was the first person, I believe, in this inner circle to the president to have been caught lying about contacts with Ambassador Kislyak. It is always a lie about Russia. What does this look like from where you sit? If you go back to the Flynn lies, you go back to Sally Yates walking into White House counsel's office and saying your guy could be blackmailed, and you go all the way through yesterday to Cohen's lies, all about Russia.
Right. So you've hit a whole core of the special counsel inquiry and their purpose in life, which is to get to the question of whether or not an adversarial government penetrated our democracy, our elective system, and now has a president compromised in the White House. And so why are they lying about this? Because all of these people are smart enough to know that this is the central issue that could bring their guy down. no one will sit still for this notion. And the question that Mueller's trying to tease out, the answer he's trying to tease out is, when did the Russia infection occur? Was it a pre-existing condition, to use my medical metaphors? Was it something that came well before? Yeah, pre-existing condition, meaning the president and his staff came into the campaign compromised and in bed with Russia? Or did it come in the form of Manafort being placed as campaign chair? Did it come in the form of Stone and or Corsi with social media propaganda, hacking, and WikiLeaks? Mueller's working on that. But the answer either way is, at some point, our president became compromised and in bed with Russia and has been lying about it.
Eli, I want to show you some of the answers that the president has offered, that what we've learned that he answered in those written responses, and see if you have any reporting that adds to it. We know that the president answered a question for Robert Mueller in writing about when he became aware of the Trump Tower meeting. You know, he answered a question about what he knew about communication between Roger Stone, his associates, Julian Assange, or WikiLeaks. We know he answered this one. What communication did you have with Michael Cohen, Felix Sater, and others, including foreign nationals, about Russian real estate developments? That's what we were talking about all day yesterday. And we also know he answered this question. What involvement did you have concerning platform changes regarding arming Ukraine? Eli, you picking up anything else that we now know he has answered? We know those were on the list of questions that his lawyers obtained from Mueller at the very beginning of the year.
Well, I know that at least some of his attorneys are not all that confident even in the answers that the president put down in writing and sent to the special counsel. We've heard from Rudy Giuliani saying, look, this is the truth as he remembers it, but, you know, trying to create a little bit of leeway here. This is a sticky situation for the president. He's never really played by the rules in business, in politics. He endeared himself to a lot of his supporters by flouting a lot of the rules and norms of politics. And he personally has always operated with this cockiness, this belief that whatever happens, he would get away with it. That may be coming back to haunt him now. Until a couple weeks ago in the midterms, he had never really paid a political price. He won in 2016. He thought he could fix anything. That was a big setback, shook his confidence, from what I'm told, by people close to him. And it's a similar situation in terms of the Mueller probe advancing, getting to an end stage, comparing his answers to the sworn testimony of several people who have cooperated with the special counsel's office. This is a difficult moment for the president, and I think his confidence in being able to survive this legal mess seems to have eroded a bit as well.
You agree?
Yeah, this is orange jumpsuit time. And it's been really clear that we were going to get to it. A lot of people have been saying that was coming. But this is what got Papadopoulos and everybody else. We don't know necessarily if what the deals he was working on in Russia, if those were necessarily illegal, although offering a $50 million penthouse to a foreign leader is probably going to be a problem on some legal levels. But lying to Congress and lying to investigators is the kind of thing that puts you in jail. That's what gets you locked up. If other people find out that you're lying and they rat you out, that's what gets you locked up. And the number that's always got me through all this is the 70 hours of interviews and testimony that Michael Cohen gave. I don't know I couldn't tell my life story in 70 hours. It'd be done in, probably 20 or so. So whatever it is he told, it wasn't just his business, but it was everybody else's. And there's no way at this point that no one's going to get arrested. And it may happen before the end of the year.
So the president also tweeting this morning that he lightly looked, I don't know what that means, lightly looked at doing a building somewhere in Russia.
And he flip-flops, right? He goes, he didn't do it, now he did do it. And I think it makes you think, right? The president had to know what was happening was not above board, right? He had to know there was something seemingly wrong with what he was doing and his dealings with Russia. But I look at there's a narrative that Robert Mueller's putting together, and it starts with follow the money. And that is what he's kind of stringing along and that we see. And then it makes me think about the founding fathers, and they're concerned, right? This is what they were concerned about, a president that will enrich themselves, that would be corruptible. I mean, we have a president right now who was not vetted. We didn't have his tax returns. The emoluments clause doesn't matter to him, and look where we are today.
That's why they're all there. All right, Eli, thank you for joining us from Points Abroad. We appreciate it. When we come back.